Good evening, everyone, and welcome to the PAC Chat. I'm Felicia Malelli, Board Chair for New Jersey Public Health Innovation Political Action Committee and J5PAC. Tonight, I am joined by our fellow board member, Rula Ballantyne. Hi, Rula. The PAC Chat was created to give you, our community, the opportunity to meet influential people in our state who share in our commitment for health freedom. As part of the PAC endorsement process, tonight we've invited Senator Mike Doherty, Assemblyman Erik Peterson, and Assemblyman John DiMaio, all of Legislative District 23. Legislative District 23 includes municipalities in Hunterdon, Somerset, and Warren counties. If you are turning in for the first time, welcome. And if you are returning, welcome back. We're going to bring our guests on in a few minutes, but for any newcomers, I just wanted to review a quick background about NJ5PAC and our endorsement process. So NJ5PAC is a nonprofit, nonpartisan, grassroots political action committee, and we were organized by passionate and committed health freedom advocates who have been advocating for wellness, for health for over 3 decades combined. And we formed to create a bridge for our community from ourselves to the legislators to help influence the political landscape in New Jersey. Since our launch, we've been very busy gaining this seat at the political table here in New Jersey and bringing the current event issues that matter to so many of us, like body autonomy, health freedom, and parental rights, to these legislators. Our goal in forming NJ5PAC was to change the issues around health freedom and to be that voice for our community. It's to give the people a seat at the political arena where we are increasingly feeling like we aren't being heard. So how does a PAC work? Simply put, a PAC collects contributions from individuals like yourselves, and then those funds are then pooled and implemented strategically to influence key campaigns in the state. And as we've discussed previously, a PAC's primary goal is to seek candidates who align with our mission so that we can advance and advocate on our behalf, so they can, advocate on our behalf in Trenton and ultimately strengthen our rights and freedoms and get this state back on course. So the PAC's mission is to protect and strengthen the constitutionally guaranteed and fundamental rights of all New Jersey residents to make medical decisions for themselves and their families without coercion or undue constraint. So we want to protect and strengthen health freedom here in New Jersey. And I'm going to just go over a little bit about our endorsement process. We created this endorsement process so that we would have integrity around who we are promoting as and elevating as a PAC. So when you see our endorsement seal, you can feel rest assured that we have vetted these candidates and that they are aligned with our mission to protect and strengthen health freedom in New Jersey. Our endorsement process includes a survey, a very lengthy interview where we get to meet the candidates ourselves as a PAC with the board, and as well as this pack chat, so that we can introduce them to you and help you feel assured when you're making your decision just a couple weeks away in November, or from actually, excuse me, from October 23rd to November 2nd. The polls are open, and we want you to feel confident when you go to those polls to know that these candidates will support you, your parental rights, body autonomy, and health freedom. So to learn more about our endorsement process and to see the candidates that we've endorsed thus far, you can go to our website at www.njpac.org/endorsements and take a look at who we've endorsed. And you can also watch their PAC chats there so you can get more comfortable with their stance on health freedom as well. Now I'm going to pass it along to Rula, who has the pleasure of introducing tonight's guests. Rula, you're muted. Sorry.
Sorry about that. Thank you, Felicia. Thank you for that introduction. That mute button gets me every time. So without further ado, let's welcome NJ5PAC's newest endorsement, the District 23 team. There we go. Welcome, Senator Doherty, Assemblyman DiMaio, and Peterson. Thank you for being here with us tonight. We are really excited to introduce you to the NJ5PAC community, to show them what an exceptional and inspiring team you all are. As you know, there is an ever-growing community of people who are concerned about parental rights, bodily autonomy, and informed consent. From completing our survey, from meeting with you on multiple times, we are grateful to know that we have representatives such as yourselves who are willing and able to serve your constituents in the state of New Jersey. With your vowed commitment to protecting and strengthening personal choice in relation to health and medical freedoms, there was no hesitation in granting our endorsement to your candidates of the 2021 New Jersey state elections. Congratulations to you all. I think we lost Senator Doherty. Oh, and he's back. So we're going to open up the floor to you all and give you an opportunity to tell our viewers a little bit about your district, about your history, about yourself, and what really prompted you to get into politics. So Senator Doherty, we'll start with you. Oh, if he's frozen, we'll give him a chance to get back on. Assemblyman DiMaio.
Well, Felicia and Rula, thank you for having us here tonight. This is a wonderful forum that we can share our ideas with and talk about, the issues that are important to you and us as well.
What's going on? So
We got a little glitch going.
So I actually started at the local level in politics when I was very young. I started at the town council level, then I became a mayor in Hackettstown and freeholder in Moore County, and then I was given the opportunity to go serve in Trenton. And it's very, very difficult serving in Trenton because we've been in the minority the entire time I've been there. But the main reason that I always say that we're in office, any of us, is to help people. And the definition of helping people is to make sure that they have the freedoms and liberties that God gave them, and that they're able to make their own decisions on many matters without government telling them how to live their lives, particularly when it comes to health. So that's as quick as I can say that. So
you summed it up very nicely. Thank you. Assemblyman Peterson, tell us a little bit about you.
Whoops, there I go. I had to unmute first there. Well, good evening, everyone. Thank you for hosting this. This is kind of a neat idea, the way to do this, and very professionally done. I'm very impressed with it. Now I just have to learn how to do the lighting in my room here so that I don't look like I'm in a cave. But look, I'll just give you a little background about myself. I grew up in New Jersey, down in South Jersey. I went to North Carolina State University. I have a business degree. And then after working for a few years, I went to law school at Temple Law School in Philadelphia. And I received my JD there. Currently, I have my own private practice. Do mostly business transaction type of work. I got involved in politics back in the 90s, early 90s, running the Young Republicans here in my home county of Hunterdon County. And my first elective office was to the Freeholder Board in Hunterdon County, and then to the legislature. What drives me, what gets me to get up, and we were talking a little bit earlier about campaign season and how much energy and activity goes on, and just doing it every day. What drives me is I have 4 kids. My oldest is a freshman at Louisville University. I have a son who's a senior in high school, a daughter who's a sophomore in high school, and a daughter who's in 7th grade. And what drives me is that every day I want to make sure that my children and your children have all the opportunities that were open to me when I was going into college and came out of college, and have the freedoms. Because I truly believe in our state motto that liberty and prosperity is the state motto. And the reason it's that is because without liberty, you can't have prosperity. And liberty is such an important thing. And it means, what it means is allows people to choose their own, make their own decisions for themselves and choose the life that they think is appropriate for themselves and their families. And I believe that to my core. And as we'll probably discuss throughout here, when you have kids in public schools like I do, and you're paying attention to what's going on, you're often astounded by what's going on. And I have spent more time than I ever dreamed, and probably more time than my parents ever imagined. When they were parents and I was in school, calling out the superintendents and the school boards on different things going on in the school that shouldn't be going on. Whether it's inappropriate curriculum, or whether it's about the mask mandate, or whether it's about some other issue that's going on in our schools. And it takes vigilance. I just heard earlier, the price of freedom is vigilance. And we have to be ever vigilant to protect freedom. And I commend you for putting together this organization that believes in freedom, because we need more people to embrace the idea that all our rights are from God to the individual. And we give some of those rights to government to have an orderly society. But there are rights, and we can give them and we can take them back. They're not rights. The government doesn't give us rights. God gives us rights, and there are rights. And if you believe that, and you understand that, that's how our country was founded on, the principles our country was founded on. And if you understand that, then you can really embrace freedom, and you can really appreciate freedom. And that's what gets me going every day. That's why I'm involved in politics, and that's why I'm glad to be here with you tonight.
Thank you, Assemblyman. I mean, you brought up some excellent points. New Jersey is an amazing state. We want to make sure that it is a place that not only we live in, but we can thrive in, and our children can thrive in as well. A place where they can stay. We've seen so many people leaving in drones. And if we can halt that and stop that, and bring New Jersey back to being a place that is livable for all and not impossible to live in, I think that is a collective mission for ourselves and for our children as well. So I am going to pass this over to Felicia. She is going to do the deep dive section of this interview, and I will come back in a few. Felicia?
Thank you, Rilla. From our lens, we can clearly see that New Jersey residents are disgruntled and have had enough. And so much is at stake that will be determined by the fate of this election on November 2nd. This election, for those of you who aren't aware, we'll have an early voting, as I mentioned before. So that starts at Saturday, October 23rd, this coming Saturday, through November 2nd. Select locations in each county are open, and voters can go to any of their respective, any of those voting centers in their respective districts. On November 2nd, you will return to your home-based voting poll. The other centers will be limited, and you'll go back to the traditional polling center that you normally go to. So I just wanted to mention that because so much is riding on the results of this election for many of our community members. And have conversations with your friends, get them to go out to vote, talk to your neighbors, encourage them to go out to vote. Early voting is really important. The last 2 years has been really eye-opening for so many of us, and these current events have launched into focus threats that specifically could be removing our religious exemptions and our ability to choose when and how to treat our families medically with things like masking and vaccinations. So I don't know if Senator Doherty's there. I think we're gonna.
He's having difficulty with the connection.
Sorry. Yes. Okay. So we're going to move on to Assemblyman Peterson, and I just just this week we were at a rally in Trenton to say no to mandates. Easily, there were 1,000 New Jersey residents who made the trip for a multitude of reasons, but mostly to hear the plaintiffs in a lawsuit by lawyer Dana Weaver. The plaintiffs ranged from janitors to teachers and health professionals who are now left unemployed as a result of Governor Murphy's mandates. What can you say to these people whose lives have been altered due to these mandates? How does this make you feel?
Well, I'm against a vax mandate, totally against it. In so much that in my home county, our community college is with Somerset County. It's called Raritan Valley Community College, and I learned from my son that one of the kids told my son, goes to Raritan Valley, told my son that they were requiring the students to be vaccinated to be able to attend. And there was no option. There was no video option. There was no other kind of option. It was either get vaccinated or not be able to attend the school. And so when I learned about this, I contacted our freeholder board and asked them to take measures, because we've got to fight back, right? Do lawsuits, whatever. But where we control the purse strings, we should fight back. And I asked the freeholder board in writing if they would do that. And they've been reluctant to. I told them they should withhold funding. They should withhold funding from the school until it reverses the vax mandate. And quite honestly, the science, I mean, no matter what the whole thing with the vaccine, whether it works, doesn't work, the truth of the matter is kids under 30 have absolutely such a low risk of having complications or even death from COVID-19 that it's so low that the side effects of the vaccine, like a young man like my son, who's physically fit and athletic, has a higher risk of getting the heart inflammation from the vaccine. So to force kids who have basically very little risk, they're more likely to die driving to the community college than they are from COVID-19, to make them get a vaccine that could potentially cause them other health complications at a higher rate is immoral. And I can't believe the school would do it. I've put a lot of pressure on the freeholder board, and they're starting to head in the right direction. And what I say is, don't give up, keep fighting, keep pushing, because what happens is people get scared and they're afraid of what might happen to them. And what I say is, freedom's worth fighting for. And you need to sometimes get out of your comfort zone and fight. And otherwise, my big fear, and I know I'm taking a lot of time, but my biggest fear is this. If on November 3rd, whether Phil Murphy wins or loses, Phil Murphy is going to institute all kinds of passports, and he's going to want to vaccinate our kids, and he's going to try to force the issue because that's who he is and that's what he wants to do. Damn the science. Damn parental rights. That's what Phil Murphy's going to do. That's my biggest fear. We got to vote him out. We got to get people to come out and understand that this isn't time to sit back and watch and see what happens. It's time for action, and it's time for everybody who wants to protect their kids to get out like-minded people to vote. And at least if Governor Murphy does those things that I fear that he'll do on November 3rd, at least Jack Ciattarelli can undo him. And so I'm just letting people know, it's time for action. It's time for action.
Well, thank you for your transparency and being so candid. And, these are, I don't like to be a person with fear, but these are our fears as a community. I tried to have faith over fear, but I appreciate you being, again, so candid. I just wanted to ask, you mentioned that if Jack is elected as governor, he could undo that. Can you explain that a little bit?
Sure. The way Governor Murphy's going to do it is through executive order, because you couldn't get the legislature. My guess is you couldn't get the legislature prior to an election to vote for anything like that, because they wouldn't get elected, because there'd be a backlash. Mm-hmm. So they're going to wait until after the election before they do anything. So if Governor Murphy instituted a vax mandate today for kids in school, and from kindergarten through college, I don't think he'd get elected. And he knows that. And he knows that's not the will of the people. So he's going to wait till, my feeling is he's going to wait to November 3rd to do whatever it is that he's going to do that he can't do before November 2nd and still win. And our legislature refused to meet, both the Senate and the Assembly refused to meet until after the election. We have a whole board date for voting after the election. And the only reason that you would wait until after the election is because whatever you're going to do then is so bad that you fear you wouldn't get reelected if you voted for it and did it before the election. Be aware. We need to get people out and vote and realize that whatever it is that they're up to that they won't tell us about today has got to be really bad, that they're going to wait till after an election. And what Jack can do is, if it's done by executive order, he can rescind the executive order when he comes in. Or he can institute an executive order around anything that the legislature does between the date of until the date of the Jack comes into office.
I hope everyone just heard what you just said. That Governor Murphy is aware it's not the will of the people, and he's going to do it anyway.
That's right. Because why else would you? Look, let's face it. Why else would you wait to do all these things until after an election? It's because you couldn't do it before the election without the risk of people voting some of your caucus out of office over it. The reason the governor won't do whatever it is that he's going to do, and he's signaling that he's going to do stuff because he can't help himself. He's not that disciplined. But what he's doing, I guarantee you, come November 3rd or 4th or 5th, somewhere in there, he's going to do something that, had the people known before the election, they wouldn't have voted for him. And that's why he's going to wait until do it then.
So, Assemblyman, I guess the time period that our community has been focused on is the lame duck season after election. So is your guess that a mandate bill would not go through the legislature during lame duck and would go through as an executive order? Can you add some clarity there? Because I know you said this is something they wouldn't touch pre-election. What about lame duck?
Well, maybe, but I think that the legislature likes the cover that an executive order gives them. So they didn't vote for it, but they got what they wanted. And let's face it, if Governor Murphy wins re-election, he never has to worry about you or I again, because he'll never be up for re-election as governor. And so he's kind of got a free hand with his executive orders. And let's face it, the legislature, those that are in challenging districts, those whose districts, the people in their districts wouldn't put up with it. When he does things by executive order, when the governor does acts by executive order, it relieves the legislature from having to vote on it and having a record of having voted for something that their people don't want. And the reason that we know that that's why they're doing it is because the legislature has refused to hold hearings to go over the executive orders that Governor Murphy has placed into effect and have public debate about it, and then require the legislature to vote for it. And that tells me that they know that their own folks in their own district don't like many of the things Governor Murphy's doing, but they're allowing him to take the pressure for it for whatever reason, because it gives them obviously because it gives them cover, and that's why they're doing it. Right. Whenever the legislature doesn't act and allows the governor to run by the executive order, this whole emergency, the concept was that when something happened in the state and the legislature couldn't convene in time to act, that the governor could act to protect people's health and welfare. We're going on 2 years and the legislature hasn't acted, and the governor keeps ruling by executive order. There's only one reason for that, and that's because the legislature doesn't want to get involved in it because it's too politically challenging for them, because they're broken down in smaller, we have districts, and some of the districts would become vulnerable if they voted for it. But on a statewide basis, Governor Murphy can get away with it. And that's what's going on here. I think we have a constitutional duty to act and stop the governor from issuing those executive orders, because he's abusing the emergency statute that gives him the authority to exercise those executive orders, because it wasn't intended. Nobody ever had the intention that he would be able to do this for 2 years. The intention was maybe for a week, 2 weeks, 30 days until the legislature could convene and then act on what needed to be done. So that's why they're doing it. It's all fraud, and people should be really irritated by it, and they should be scared that you have a legislature who doesn't want to use their constitutional powers and would rather have one person do it. That's not American. That's not our system of government. We're a representative government, not an authoritarian government where one person rules.
Right. Assemblyman DiMaio, I see you're eager to add.
I just wanted to add to Eric's point, although he covered it in great detail, that we have the Republicans have bills in that would make it so the legislature would review the executive orders within the period of time after they were enacted, just so we would either concur or adjust and have that balance of responsibility of the two governments two branches of government coming together and doing their job. It's like, and the Democrats won't post them in committee or on the floor. So I mean, we've made attempts. The Republican caucus has made attempts to remedy this. And by the way, Senator Doherty says he's having technical difficulties. He thanks everyone for the endorsement, but he can't seem to stay on the platform. So he sent us a note on that. So
well, thank you. Thank him for that message. And we know Senator Doherty is such an incredible supporter of our community and of our mission. So there are no question marks there. Maybe we can set up something another night, but we really appreciate that message. So back to your point, Assemblyman Peterson and DiMaio, basically, essentially, the legislator, at least the Democrat Assembly, voted themselves almost out of the legislative process by not voting to support the bill that would have limited the governor's executive orders, right? I don't remember exact details, but I think it was review every certain period. Right. What was the amount? It may have been 30 days or 15 days. Yeah. I'm not exactly sure what the time frame was. And in my opinion, that should have been a no-brainer, right? It shouldn't have been Republican versus Democrat bill. It should have been something that was common sense. No matter who the governor is, today you may like his policy, tomorrow it may be another governor in there that you do not. So for both sides of the aisle, you would think that some type of limit and checks and balances would be applauded and supported. And when it was not, it was just watching the entire democratic process crumble. Essentially what was happened, the Senate and the Assembly and the constituents that they represent and their voices were really taken out of the process and hushed. So, and now we are dealing with the ramifications every day of that decision.
Intentionally, they let it happen to the legislature. I mean, the reality is, why do we go there? We go there to debate the issues, to redraw concepts of bills and try to have the best outcome. And so you take 120 people out of the process that would have collective minds at the tables at the committee level and also on the floor, and fix things or say, no, these are not good policies for the state. But no, even some of these things have been in effect from March of 2020. And Erik's right. We're better part of 2 years now of some of these things have been imposed on us. And when you govern, when a Democratic governor like Phil Murphy governs by polling data that he extracts from people and executive order, he could design his way to reelection.
Right. Felicia, do you want to take the question that was assigned for Senator Doherty and give the Assemblyman a chance to answer?
I can. I had a question for Assemblyman DiMaio, because I know that he's a grandpa and he's got one on the way. If I'm correct. Maybe multiple on the way. Is it just one?
No, we have a 29-month-old.
Okay, you have a baby.
I don't know how many days he's been here, but and another one that'll be born on February 1st or so, give or take.
Oh, that's my daughter's birthday. Congratulations. So I wanted to bring this up because it might touch home to you that all the hypocrisy that's been going on around children and masking. Now we have children as young as 2 years old being masked for way over 30 plus hours a week. If you're in school for 6 hours a day, normal schooling, but there's some children that are in facilities, daycare facilities and things for the latter part of the day because their parents have to work. So that's a really long time wearing masks, when we know that you can go to a movie or a sporting event or other types of facilities where certain gatherings, political gatherings, or that we've seen that you don't have to wear a mask. So, and recently, actually just yesterday in the car, my 7-year-old son said to me, Mom, when is this germ going to be gone? It's been a really long time. So we don't know how these are affecting these kids. It hit me right in my stomach hearing him say that. The majority of his memory is based on this virus. And I know it's an awful thing that has happened to so many, but our children are being altered by it. And who knows what it's doing to their will to have to be masked constantly. I'm just curious from your standpoint, what you think of this.
It's awful. And then you see Governor Murphy walking into his press conference about the virus, wearing a mask, and there's nobody around him. He sits at the table and takes it off. Then he says, "Good afternoon, everyone." But yet there's been videos of him recently at parties in people's houses, taking pictures, hugging people, talking inside. Like there's this double standard thing. You know, you're trying to show people you should wear a mask, but then when he thinks no one's looking, he doesn't wear the mask. It's only for show. It's like a theatrical thing that he's employed to further impose fear in the hearts of people. You know, that this thing is going to get all of us. Reality is the greater percentage of people who have had it, you know, it's a terrible cold or it's like a terrible flu, but they get through it and they go on with their lives. It's just one of the things the body itself can create defenses for and get stronger by. And children have some of the best immune systems and the best lungs. There's a doctor on Fox News in the morning that talks about this stuff, that effectively the kids have the best way to defend themselves from this. I think they do more damage by wearing the mask. I don't know how we could be expected to keep a mask on a 2-year-old. It's very hard to do. They barely want to keep their clothes on some days. So it's like, you know, it's not going to stay on that well. So it's a ridiculous thing. I go by our middle school in Hackettstown some days, and the kids are outside running around the parking lot wearing masks, you know, for their PT. So I look at my grandkids and just pray to God that they don't have to have these things imposed on them whenever their time comes to go to school. You know, if we use our head, wash our hands, don't touch things, and just avoid things, you can get through this.
Yeah,
it's just ridiculous. But imposing on kids is awful. You know, if older folks want to do it, let me say this: if I felt that I was going into a place where I needed a mask, I don't need Governor Murphy to tell me to do it or show me. If I felt I needed one, I put it on myself. We're not stupid. It's like we're all a bunch of. They treat us like we're not capable of taking care of ourselves. And if you look at the polling data, the baby boomers are on the COVID issue are like 25% more in favor of Murphy because of this whole fear that he's instilled in their hearts. And it's just ridiculous. It's almost like a brainwashing.
Yeah, exactly. It's a big experiment, you know, from the masks to all of it. It's an experiment because the masks haven't even been proven effective. And we've never had this time where children have had to be masked this long, all the developmental issues. And ultimately we feel that we're trying to protect choice. Because if you feel that that's the best thing for your family, then by all means do that. But we want it to be left to choice. And we also feel that, like to your point, there's alternative ways, you know, we can be promoting health and wellness and things like that. And you don't hear any of that. So there's a lot that just doesn't make sense. I do
when this started, we started taking more supplements, B12, C, D. You know, so we started taking supplements as well, the natural vitamins, and that is a very helpful route too.
Exactly, but we can't really talk about that mainstream, you know, or they're not. So I think it's important to mention that, you know, just yesterday, because talking about mandates, Governor Murphy placed yet another executive order to bring new contracted workers in line with the vaccine and testing requirements. So, you know, surrounding vaccine mandates. We also know that Governor Murphy would like to make New Jersey the California of the East Coast. So I'm just curious. This is a question I had for Senator Doherty, but, you know, you can share the answer if you'd like. I'm just curious in your perspective, what does 4 more years with Governor Murphy look like in regards to health freedom? And you kind of touched on this, Assemblyman Peterson.
Right, that one's for me.
Either one, but you know, you know, one thing I do want to interject here, and then Erik can could talk to this as well. This issue, I mean, there's no doubt that some people get sick. It happens, but they've made this fear factor so big it's become a smokescreen for the real issues of the state of New Jersey, like the amount of money the budget's grown by in 4 years, the borrowing that they bamboozled the state Supreme Court into allowing, which they shouldn't have, and we've had record revenue growth during that period. So while we're looking at this COVID thing and, oh my God, he's got everybody's attention over here, he's picking your pockets every day. And I think people miss that. You know, there's a lot of things they use as these issues to get you off track. And this one was a great opportunity to distract us from the real issues of the state of New Jersey.
Wow.
All right. So, well, I two things. First, if you want to get the bill passed that limits the governor's executive orders that was discussed earlier, elect Jack Ciattarelli, because as soon as you elect him, the Democrats in the legislature will pass a bill to limit the power of the governor when it's not their governor. So if you want that passed, vote for Jack. It's a good reason to vote for Jack as any, right? So here's
that's a good campaign strategy. You got to jot that one down, Felicia.
But I'll just say this: if Governor Murphy wins, he is going to take it as a mandate to further his COVID-19 response. He will say that people want to be mandated the vaccine. He will say that people want their kids to be masked. He will say that everything that he's doing that they want, and that's why they voted for him. Guarantee you that is what he will say. He will give him free rein because he's basically running on his COVID-19 response because he has no other accomplishments other than having scared the hell out of a lot of people with fake science. And when I say it's fake science, I'll just tell you this. Last November, the governor issued an executive order shutting down youth sports for the month of December. And he said that he did it based on the science and that he did it surgically. So I asked for the science. He refused to give it to me. I sued him under Open Public Records Act. I won. And there is no science. He made it up. Wake up, New Jersey. He's making it up. Take a look at the CDC. Go look at the facts. Go look. You can look at it yourself. It's online. The truth is out there. You can go look. You can see what the real risks are. If you're healthy and you're under the age of 65, you should just live your life normally. And if you have some kind of health issue, then you should consult with your doctor and make a decision. Don't go by these folks who every time Governor Murphy wants to scare people into following him, he says that they're killing people if they don't do what he says they're going to do. And he's lying. He's lying. It's an absolute lie. He should be ashamed of himself, but the man has no shame. He's shameless. And what he's done is he's divided us in such a way that those who know that he's lying and those who don't. And the unfortunate part is those who don't know he's lying actually think that if they catch COVID, they're going to die, when there's a 99.74% of the people don't die from COVID. Wake up, get to know the facts, tell people facts, talk in facts, send them to the CDC website where the facts are, and give the people information. That's how we're going to beat them. That's how we're going to beat all this with facts and sending them to like the CDC or to John Hopkins' website where they can get real information about what really is going on. So my big fear is if Governor Murphy wins, that he will take it as a mandate and he will make us like California, where all your rights have been taken away if you don't get vaccinated, and then get booster shot after booster shot after booster shot. If that's what you want for you and your family, vote for Phil Murphy. If you don't, vote for Jack Ciattarelli. I mean, that's really how clear cut it is to me in this election. And don't take this lightly, because John and I are down in Trenton. We hear them. They win elections. They think that it means that they've been given a mandate for everything, even the things that they didn't run on, even those issues they didn't run on, that they're going to do after the election's over in the lame duck session, because you elected them again. That's how they view it. They don't view it as you got a mandate for this or that. They view it for everything that they want to do, whether they told you they were going to do it or not. So that's why it's so critical to get out and vote, because they'll take away your rights. And if they can't do it through the legislative process, they'll do it by executive order. So we got to put an end to it.
This is really important that you're sharing this with us, because this is what we've been telling our community. This is what our community fears. And there you have it. You're in Trenton, you're Assemblyman, and you're both saying that this is a true concern, and to be aware and to get out to vote, because that's what's going to make the difference. We need people getting to the polls and voting for Jack Ciattarelli, or the fate of New Jersey, as we've been saying as a political action committee, and now you're clearly reinforcing it, is looking very grim in terms of our health freedoms.
And if I can, Felicia, just real quick. By the way, every 2 years, as soon as we put the budget, when they vote for the budget through and we're done at the end of June, every election year that we're done with the budget, we don't go back till after election. Somebody asked me recently, how's things in Trenton? I go, great, we're not there. So if we're not there, they're not passing more lousy laws that are going to screw up your life. But I mean, I say that tongue in cheek, but the reality is there's a lot of work that could be getting done. But because they don't want to risk people realizing that close to the election that they're doing these bad things, they hide. Let's just stay home. Let's hide.
Well, are you even able to be in Trenton right now? I guess you are. We're not. We're not allowed in the building still. I
mean, we can go there.
Yeah.
There are staff offices and things that, we can go, but
the building's been closed. The public hasn't been allowed in the buildings yet.
No, not yet.
No.
It's been closed to the public.
Every one of our desks has plexiglass around it. It looks like a giant aquarium with all these plastic fish bowls, and it's ridiculous. We did stage a protest on masks one day, though. When we got to our plastic enclosure, we all took them off, and the speaker really didn't want to say anything, but the members were giving him, his Democrats were complaining, and so they were going to hold some of our bills, and ended up that we effectively told them, all right, you want to hold that veterans bill and not vote? They were holding Republican bills. If you want to hold that veterans bill, go ahead. So he said while we were sitting, we could take the mask off like we were.
So I'm going to shift gears a little bit. I know that Felicia and I and the rest of the board members of this PAC eat, sleep, and breathe medical freedom, health freedom as our issue at the forefront. However, we know that there is more to it for you as legislators than just solely health freedom. Although I can argue that it is the most important freedom and right, we know there's more. Can you share with our viewers some of the issues that you really champion behind, are supportive of, outside the health freedom world? Assemblyman Peterson.
Sure. Well, look, just to, you're right that medical freedom, it's so personal that if you lose the freedom of being able to make decisions for your own body, autonomy,
right?
You really don't have freedom anymore. I mean, that's where it all starts. I mean, look, it starts with freedom of religion, and freedom to make decisions for yourself, for how you personally are, and your family. I mean, that is so critical. And the fact that this administration and this Democrat Party keeps eating away at those freedoms is very disturbing. And this COVID gave them a pretext to really run full force into this. And what I think part of what they're doing is, with all these little mandates, they're seeing how far they can get away with it. Because if you are willing to do that, there's a lot more that they can do. I always say, everyone has their area, like you said, medical freedom, right? And then we have a big constituency that the Second Amendment is their big thing. And we have constituencies that there's different things that are their big thing. And they see their rights being eroded in whatever area is important to them. The one thing you have to remember is, once they take away the right that you don't care about, they'll eventually get to yours.
Right.
So
Absolutely.
you have to stand up for all rights.
Right.
And you have to stand up for all the rights in the Constitution. And it comes back to what I said earlier. You have to realize that these are all your rights. God gave them to you, and you have to protect them. And it's
Absolutely.
a responsibility. And what we do, to us in Trenton, it's all about protecting. Our big focus is protecting those rights, whether it's the Second Amendment, whether it's freedom of the press. That sometimes they do things that limit your ability to express yourself, especially political speech. There's a whole host of issues that are out there. Another one, and I think sometimes we forget about this, but taxing is a way to take away rights. Because if you don't have the money to spend the way that you want to spend, they're taking away your rights. And we often forget that, because it's really one of the cornerstones of our founding was the idea that the people would have to approve spending and how much they were taxed, because our founding fathers realized that having the ability to keep your own money and spend it the way you want is freedom. And it allows you to drive the course to where things go individually. That's why you see in Supreme Court decisions about campaign funding, it allows individuals and groups who come together to run political ads, because that's freedom of speech. But to be able to use your own money as much as you want to express yourself, it's all connected. And what we try to do, what some people try to do, I think people who think government is the answer to everything, try to do is split those things apart. They say rich people have too much money, we should take some of their money. You shouldn't be able to do this. We're going to tell you how to do this. We think guns are scary, so we're going to limit your ability to have a gun and use it. All those things come together. Eventually, you have no freedoms left. And when we get to the situation where we are today, where somehow some genius thinks it's okay to mask a 2-year-old, where the science doesn't support it, but the science be damned, because the government said it was good, because Phil Murphy said it was good, it's got to be good. And freedom requires responsibility. Freedom requires people to think, and freedom requires people to take the time to get the facts and make decisions. And we need to, start encouraging that amongst our neighbors and our family to do that. And we all have to figure out a way to better educate people about their freedoms, not to tell them how to exercise their freedoms, but to let them know that they're theirs and that they need to protect them, because the freedoms that they cherish today will be gone if they don't protect the ones that they don't.
Absolutely. And I just want to highlight one of the points you made earlier about all the kind of cross between, rights being taken away by the government, whether you are a medical freedom person or a 2A supporter, whatever the issue may be. Essentially, it is government intervening in what your rights are, and those rights beginning to diminish. And if there is a silver lining to the pandemic, you have seen so many people who never even took a minute to think about politics or be involved or use their voices kind of now rise up together, join forces. I mean, I'm sure you have, as a legislator, you have witnessed this kind of involvement at multiple levels, whether it be the Board of Ed, showing up in Trenton, speaking, showing up at council meetings, whatever it may be. You have people have found their voices through their process in this pandemic and said, okay, it is time to get involved. They're realizing the serious and the gravity of the matter. So if there's a silver lining, it is that, people are more awake now than ever before, and we are witnessing it happen in real time.
And I couldn't agree with you more. If there is any benefit that's come out of this whole crisis that's going on in our country, is that people who were never before actively political have gotten activated, and some wonderful people that we would that should be involved, should be active. We need them. Right now, the three of us are helping 12 Board of Education candidates get elected to start taking back our Board of Educations. I encourage people who to get involved, and running for the school board is a great way of doing it. And it's the place that starts. And if you don't do it for any other reason, that's your biggest part of your property tax bill. And you can start making some headway on that as well, because the waste is unbelievable in our education system. And we need to bring some sanity back, and we need to bring back. And I think people need to stand up for their kids, and that's a great place to do it. I personally, not only do I badger the superintendents of my kids' school, I also attend school board meetings and speak out. I'm no different than anybody else. I'm just a dad who's there to protect my kids and to make sure that their lives have the same opportunities that I have, and that this fear mongering, and that's really what it is, doesn't get a foothold, and that our kids remain resilient, and we push back. And I want to show my kids, and I think we all need to show our kids that when that freedom's worth fighting for, and that we as parents have an obligation to stand up and say no. And I just want to say this. I said this at a couple school board meetings. Just because Phil Murphy says it isn't right, and just because the government says it doesn't make it right. And you need to teach your kids that there's nothing wrong with questioning government. There's nothing wrong that when government's wrong and doing something really wrong, you say no. And I say this to school boards. I said, you want to just follow along because Murphy said to do it. But those nursing homes where they put those COVID-infected people into nursing homes, killing 8,000 of our neighbors and friends and family, those nursing home operators knew that it was wrong. They knew that this was going to happen. They knew people were going to die. They knew people in their facility were going to die because of this edict from a man who should never make any healthcare decisions for anybody, probably not even himself, because he's not good at it.
No.
If they nursing home operators had just said, no, I'm not allowing you to put these COVID-infected people into my nursing home because you're going to kill people, we could have saved lives.
Yep.
Instead, they were bullied, and they didn't have the fortitude to stand up to do what they knew in their hearts was right, and people died.
Right.
People died. And you know what? When are we going to wake up and realize that it's okay to say no when they are horribly wrong and it's going to hurt somebody, or in this case, kill 8,000 seniors.
And there were
Who
plenty
would
of
ever
other,
follow anything medical from Judy Persicelli and Governor Murphy when their decision was so idiotic, because I can't think of a better word for it, idiotic, and resulted in 8,000 people dying? I wouldn't take any medical advice from them or anybody that reports to them, because they have no idea what they're doing. Absolutely none. And that should be enough for most people to realize that maybe they should look elsewhere for it, and not to this governor and his commissioner of health, because these folks have a horrible track record, and they knew what. And look, anybody who's ever been to a nursing home knows that when the flu's going around, they shut it down to outside visitors. There's a reason, because people die in nursing homes when they get the flu, because they're our most vulnerable people. And we're going to put this novel virus that we know kills old people into nursing homes. Unbelievable to me.
Yeah.
That's why we should never follow anything this man says. We should resist. We'll use their words. We should resist the stupidity, resist the freedom grab, and just say no.
These mandates end when we say no. You're absolutely correct. And when enough people say no, and we've witnessed it happen enough times to realize that is really the answer. We watched it happen with Southwest Airlines. When enough people said no, and it starts with one person, and when you say no, you encourage your neighbor and your peer to do the same, and so on and so forth. And once you say no, that is really, truly the answer. Compliance. There is nothing patriotic about compliance. Our founding fathers in this country was found from a group of people who just said, no, we're not going to tolerate this anymore. And I think that is the spirit of, Americans as we know it. And you're absolutely correct. Resist, resist, resist. No, no, no. Okay. So Assemblyman DiMaio.
yes.
Health, and I want both of you to answer this, but we're going to start with you. Health freedom means something to each individual. What does health freedom mean to you?
Well, what it means to me is I'm an individual, and I'm perfectly capable of making my own decisions. And I will make decisions. Well, when my kids were small, we would, as parents, would do our parental responsibility and make sure our kids were healthy, and no one was telling us what to do. We would consult with the doctors and follow that advice. If we didn't like what that doctor said, we might go to another one and get a second opinion. So the reality is, for the government to just do this blanket one-size-fits-all health policy is just totally ridiculous. My wife, for example, had an injury as a result of a vaccine 32 years ago, I'll say. And she does not want to take this vaccine. And she's not going to. So that's an individual case.
Right.
My daughters are in their early 30s, and they're of childbearing age. There's not enough data for any of us to know how it affects their reproductive systems, what could happen to that child in the womb. And they're not going to take it. Same with the fathers. While they're of that age, there's not enough data to say anything could happen to that baby. So there's a lot of different things that comes into play. Certainly our 29-month-old or 2.5-year-old grandson, I think the parents would fight on that one too. If they tried to mandate a vaccine, we'd probably hide them. It's like, it's getting to be, and we throw the word socialism around. And when I was a kid, and I'm older than most of you, well, I'm older than all of you because I'm older than Erik, and he's almost as old as me. Not quite, but we're older. When I was a kid, if the word socialist was used, John Fitzgerald Kennedy would send military. I can't imagine that it's so loosely used now. Democratic socialist. And it's a slippery slope. Once you give up the ability to make decisions for yourself, and once the government starts telling you how and what to do everything, you make a weak society where people are not independent thinking. They don't work hard enough to learn everything they need to learn to do what's right or wrong, and then you become like a slave to the system. And this in my mind is horrible. I never thought, like I grew up in the 60s. I was born at 55, so I grew up in the 60s. When I was that age, back then, you would never even believe if somebody were to say in 50 years, this is what our country's going to be talking about and actually trying to do. This is beyond just this COVID issue. It's beyond vaccines. It's mind-boggling. But they get people used to these little changes, and the next thing you know, we're captives. And I'm frightened for my grandchild.
I asked what it meant to you, but I think you covered so much of what it means to so many people in our community as well. So thank you for that answer and speaking so passionately about it. Assemblyman Peterson, give me your take.
Sure, I think you probably already know. Especially your body is. Government shouldn't force you to do anything when it comes to your person. And if you have minor children, the parents should decide what's for that child. I just want to say, look, I've been very consistent on this issue, on these medical freedom issues. I sit on the health committee, and those of you who follow that health committee for years, I've been on the health committee, I guess, 8 or 10 years at this point. I've always voted against vax mandates that have come out. I voted against taking away the religious and medical exemptions that they always are putting forward. I voted against putting fluoride in the water. I voted against everything along those lines. And I've always voted that it's between an individual and their physician, or an individual and God, as to what decision that they make. And that has been my consistent way of voting on these issues, because I truly believe that. And I believe that it's such a personal issue that government should never get into that sphere of what you do to your own body in that way. Shouldn't force you to do something. And that's the thing. There's this force. They want to inject you with something, or they want to put something in your water. I just was always against it because it just seemed totally wrong to me. And I never dreamed that we'd get to where we are today, with the way that this has turned from this discussion that I have to say, it was mostly moms. These moms would show up in mass and they'd be everywhere. And it was great. They came and it prevented those rights from being taken away. It prevented some of the other nonsense that they wanted to do in these legislations. And what I always found hard to understand is that the chairman of the health committee in the assembly is a doctor. And he always says that it should be between a patient and their doctor when it comes to like the insurance companies want to have a protocol on the subscriptions, on prescriptions. He always says it should be between the patient and the doctor. The insurance company shouldn't have any role in it whatsoever and all that. But when it comes to these other things, I guess he wants to be everybody's doctor. And it's between him and everybody, because he forgets that the idea of the vaccines or fluoride in the water or whatever it happens to be should be between a person and their doctor. And you know what? One size does not fit all, and everybody has to make decisions that they're comfortable with. Everybody does. and I want to go back to something Felicia said, I think said earlier. If they were really worried about, if they really wanted to if they're really worried about public health and COVID, we would be testing people for diabetes, because that's the number one morbidity.
Morbidity. I got you. Morbidity.
It is like,
No,
well,
you're close, right? Close enough.
It's the number one that's out there. And I'll give you 2 instances. My father-in-law caught COVID. He got really sick, ended up in the hospital. They thought he was dehydrated, hydrated him, sent him home. He came back, and somebody at the hospital was smart enough to say, hey, maybe this guy has diabetes. Probably a 2-cent medical procedure. They find out that his sugars are high, because the other thing they do is they hit you with steroids, which shoots up your sugars. He was pre-diabetic. They gave him insulin, and he was home and fine in no time. A friend of mine just went into the hospital. He's crying on the phone that he's going to die because he's having a hard time breathing. And he tells me he's pre-diabetic. I get his nurse on the phone, and I say to him, he's pre-diabetic. You need to give him insulin, because the steroids you're pumping him up with are taking his sugars out of sight. And you know what? They did. They gave him a pinprick, found out his sugars were high, gave him insulin. He was home the next day. If we really cared about public health, we would say, if you meet these criteria, you should be checked for diabetes. And we could do 2 things. We could get people who are pre-diabetic or even have full-blown diabetes and get it under control through diet and medication if need be. And we would end a lot of the hospitalizations right there and then. But we're really not about that. What we're about is getting a shot that's made people billionaires overnight, literally billionaires overnight. And we're making people rich because it's a never-ending shot, booster after booster after booster. And what for? When there's other ways to deal with it without doing that. And if we really cared about public health, we would look at the factors that make people end up in the hospital, like diabetes, and get that under control. Because that would not only solve the COVID health issues, but a broader health issues that our country struggles with obesity and just poor eating and exercise habits. And we could solve a lot of problems for people and give them better health by just saying, hey, go get it tested to see if you have diabetes. It'll take 2 seconds and it'll cost a nickel. Get it done. But that's not what we're doing. So you have to really question what is really behind the motives of pushing this vaccine on everybody. And you know what? I can't come up with one good one. If someone has a good one, I'd love to hear it.
Me too. I'd like to hear it too. So with everything we discussed tonight and all the, the wide array of issues we went over regarding health freedom, is it safe to say that 2021 is the most pivotal election that New Jersey has seen, especially as it relates to health freedom and our bodily autonomy and our rights in the state? And if so, can we give a message to our community and our viewers about the importance of getting out to vote, specifically even in districts like yours that they may feel, are solid red districts, right? The importance of them getting out to vote and casting their vote for someone like Jack, right, that has publicly announced his support of health freedom and in the state and has not really wavered on that. So can you give a message, please, to our community about, the get out to vote and the importance of it?
Well, I'll just say this. You mentioned areas like where Erik and I represent, which are very red. All the more reason for everyone who's a Republican to come out and vote, because that will help build the margin and help Jack get over the top. Just don't assume that, the local candidates are going to win in Warren and Hunterdon and Somerset. Come out and vote for the top of the ticket to the bottom and the bottom up to the top, so everyone wins. But don't stay home. There's multiple ways to vote now. We've learned how to do it. If you haven't turned in your vote by mail ballot, you'll be getting a phone call more than one time to be reminded. Remind your neighbors to vote. If they vote by mail or early voting, however they do it, just make sure everyone gets out and votes, because this is an incredibly important election. I've never seen, I thought years ago, Governor Florio spent incredible amount of money. There's not even a comparison to what's going on right now. The budget's up 35% in 4 years. It's unsustainable. And the next thing you know, the economy will have a little hiccup, and they're either going to come after everyone for more taxes, or then they're going to just cut stuff that maybe we don't want to lose so they can keep their pet projects in place. Jack, listen, none of us are perfect in office. You're not going to agree with every position we may have, but the reality is what you look for is a high level of agreement, and he will for certain have the veto pen for line item veto in the budget, which means he can take things out or adjust numbers downward in the budget. And also that veto pen can veto bad legislation. And the more seats we pick, which we're working very hard this year to add to our caucus, because there's no more veto proof majority. So I mean, you can, if something got too out of hand, there could be vetoes issued if he were there. So this is important. We have a Republican governor, because it's going to take us a little while longer to get get the Democrats out of the legislature in control and get us in and give us a majority. And then we're going to act like Republicans, and we're going to go through here and reform this government and be what the people expect from New Jersey, so we can be a great, great state again. We're just wasting on the vine right now.
Thank you.
My turn?
Assemblyman Peterson, yeah, I'm sorry. I was muted.
Hey, look,
Erik,
I'll just say this, right? It's really important to get out and vote, because you don't want Phil Murphy, even if he wins by one vote, he's going to say he has a mandate. And when the man has no other elections to run for, and this is it, and he loves that executive order pen. It's not just this. Who knows where he'll go when he's totally unleashed and is unaccountable any longer. But even more importantly, John said for Republicans to get out and vote. I think everybody who's like-minded and doesn't like what's going on today needs to come out and vote for Republicans, because that's where the change is going to come. And I'll just say this. If you'd like Erik Peterson to be the chairman of the health committee and see all those crappy bills that you hate never make day of light, vote Republican, and I'll become, if we get a majority, John, I'm going to be the chair of the health committee.
Yep.
And we won't have this problem.
Yeah.
And we'll bring back sanity to New Jersey. If you like to have a guy like me chairing these committees and deciding what bills come up in committee, how it's run, so there's transparency, because you guys know who've been testifying down there. They want to shut you down. They don't want you to talk. They don't want to hear from you. I'll hear from everybody. But the bills, the chair gets to pick the bills. The chair runs the meetings. And you can count on me. My word is my bond. I mean that. I'll stand up. If I told you I'm going to do something, I'm going to do it. And that's really the thing. Really what I think people miss is, if we can get a majority, if we can win the governorship and get a majority, all these things you're worried about will go away. And you won't have to worry about it as long as we're in charge. Because, in the health committee, none of those vaccine bills, taking away your exemptions, none of them will see the light of day. Because no lobbyist has enough money to buy me, because I'm not buyable. I am principled.
That's amazing.
And I got to tell you, it's a racket, and I hate the racket. I hate it. I hate it. I hate it. But somebody's got it. We've got to stand down there. We've got to send people who don't want to become part of the racket, want to become part of the solution, and believe in freedom and limited government and individual rights. That's what your vote means. That's what your neighbor's vote means. And you don't have to love me, and you don't have to think that I'm warm and fuzzy, because I'm not. But what you know is you know what you're getting by your voting with me. You don't have to be with me on every issue, but you know what you're getting, and you know you're not being sold out for campaign money or jobs or whatever it is, because I'm not, you can't buy me. I'm not for sale. My vote's not for sale. My conscience isn't for sale. My principles aren't for sale, because I want my kids to be proud of me. I want my wife to be proud of me. I want my mother and my sisters to be proud of me. And I want my deceased father from heaven looking down and being proud of me. And there's only one way to do that, and that's to do the right thing, and to do it no matter what the challenges are. So that's why you need to go out and vote Republican all the way across the ticket, because we can change things with that. And let me tell you, me, chair of the health committee, scares the hell out of them. Scares them, because they've been diverting legislation that should go through the health committee around the health committee, because they don't want me asking questions about those bills. So they avoid my committee. Why is that?
Assemblyman, if I was there in person and we were having this meeting in person, I'd give you a big high five after that speech, a pound, a hug, all of it, because that was incredible, really good. And your passion is palatable, and your sincerity. So thank you.
Thank
too,
you.
Assemblyman DiMaio. We really appreciate everything you have shared with us tonight. The PAC put out a simple statement earlier today, and that was not voting this election is a vote for medical mandates. So staying home, not getting out and casting your vote is directly a vote for medical mandates. So we cannot stress enough how important it is to get out and vote and make your voice heard. Assemblyman DiMaio, I saw you put your hand up. Did you want to add something?
I just wanted to point out something. I remember reading an article, and I have a computer next to me. That's why I keep looking over. If you think there's not a lot of money being wasted, let me just tell you something. In District 8 and District 2, two legislative districts, there's over $6 million being spent. $6 million for two legislative districts. So you have to be grabbing an awful lot of money out of somewhere to be able to come up with that kind of money to dump in a campaign. So follow the money. If for nothing else, we shouldn't be spending $3.6 million, $3.3 million in District Number 2.
Right.
Because there's something at stake, and it must be money.
Yeah, we see that with the money that's going towards the school districts to make sure that they're compliant with the vaccine mandates and reporting system that they've put in place. And if you're not compliant, you don't get the money. We saw it with the colleges. I will never forget, just a couple of days after the college mandates started to roll out, I was sitting in an office, and on the television, I look up and they say that, there's going to be relief fund for these colleges. And they hone in on just the first college that was coming out at that time, Rutgers, that was coming out to set forth their mandates. It's follow that trail, and it's interesting.
And you'll get a lot of answers that way when you follow the money. Okay, Felicia, I'm going to pass this on to you. I know you wanted to do the wrap up and closing here. So before I sign off, I want to thank you, Assemblyman, for such, your transparency, your passion, and your support on the issues that matter most to us. So thank you very much.
Yeah, you guys clearly painted a picture of the egregious times that we've been talking about to our community. You've also shed some light on truth behind the policies and what's happening on the back end in Trenton. We thank you for for being so candid and that full transparency. I think there is no question as to why it was so simple for us to give you this endorsement. Obviously, you've earned it with the completion of your survey and the time we spent together, your voting history, and of course your true and honest stance on how important bodily autonomy is to you and protecting freedoms for your constituents here in New Jersey. And the alerts that you gave, I think, are tremendous. I hope that they are well received, and we will be doing. I'm certain I'm going to be elevating your comments to let our audience and our community members know how pivotal this next 12 days are. On the ticker on the bottom, you can see where you have to go to find out where your early voting polls are. They are listed at www.nj.gov/state/elections/early early voting. And you can find your voting polling locations that will be just for the first 10 days or 12 days or so of voting, and then you'll go to your typical voting location for November 2nd. But get out to vote early. Don't wait. Share this message with your friends and families. Get them out to vote. If you can ask one person a day to go vote and have this conversation about why it's so important from now till election day, that would be hugely instrumental in helping to increase voter turnout. As a PAC, it's important to know that your contributions to us goes to elevating candidacies for legislators that align with our mission. So when you donate to us, it's also like signing a petition. It's showing the legislative body how important this issue is, and it is extremely important now and for the fate of New Jersey to get behind our mission and support us. Please continue to follow us, share our message, like all our social media on Facebook, Instagram, Twitter, Telegram, you name it. And we thank you for tuning in, and have a great night. Thank you, Assemblyman. Oh, and on behalf of Senator Doherty, I just wanted to say that he has our complete endorsement. We're sorry that we missed him, and we will do what we can to get his voice heard.
And he's grateful for the endorsement.
Thank you. I appreciate it. Well, have a great night, everyone.
Good night, everyone.
Good night.
For staying in.
Bye-bye.